All right, ladies and gents. 2.1 to 2.3. Every single version will have a question like this first one. You will not have to graph this first one. But you are going to have to find all of the stuff. Vertex, axis of symmetry, X intercepts, Y intercepts, all that stuff. So we're going to run through this one quickly. This is a fairly easy one. The one on your test will be a little harder. You'll probably have a fraction. You will have to factor where A is not 1, but that's not anything you guys can't handle. Yeah.
Why don't we do harder ones when we're practicing?
All right, first thing you got to look at here. Are we in standard form?
No.
So rewrite it. So we're in standard form. Negative x squared minus 2x plus 8 equals 0. How do you find the vertex, guys? Negative b over 2a is going to give me the x part of my vertex. So when we do this, we have a negative 2 over 2 times negative 1, correct? A negative 2 gives me 2 over negative 2, which gives me negative 1. How do we find the y part? Plug it back in. Just like on your quiz that you guys had, you will probably have a fraction. We should all be able to work with fractions. So y equals negative x squared minus 2x plus 8. So I have negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1 plus 8. What is negative 1 squared? Positive 1. Then I have that negative sign in front, so it's negative 1. What's negative 2 times negative 1?
2.
Positive 2 plus 8. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1 plus 8 gives you 9. Now, just by finding the vertex, ladies and gents, you can answer every single question on here except for the x-intercepts. What is your axis of symmetry? X equals negative 1. What is your y-intercept? 0, 8. Good. What is the domain? Negative infinity, good, to positive infinity. What's the range? It's an upside down parabola. What's my range? Negative infinity to positive 9. Good. Do I have a max or a min? A maximum at y equals 9. And what would the vertex form look like? F of x equals negative 1 squared plus 9. Perfect. Do you have to have that 1 in front?
Yeah.
No, you can just put the negative sign. But once you guys find the vertex, you can answer every single part of this question. Yes? You guys okay with that? If your vertex is a fraction, just say if it was a fraction. That's fine. Just leave it. If it was like one version last time was 3/4. So just put it in vertex form x plus 3 over 4. Doesn't matter. Just leave the fraction. I'm not looking for you guys to simplify anything like that, but God bless you. Whatever the vertex is, put it in vertex form and leave it as a fraction if that works out to be that way. Now, if you're going to find the x-intercepts, what do we have to do? You have to factor. Negative x squared minus 2x plus 8 equals 0. In order to factor completely, what do we have to take out first? Got to take out that negative. Factor out your negative 1. So you have x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. What are the factors of negative 8 that multiply to give you negative 8 but add to give you positive 2? Negative 2 and positive 4. Now we set each piece equal to 0. So negative 1 equals 0. Not true. X minus 2 equals 0. So I have an x-intercept at positive 2. And then x plus 4 equals 0. So you have an x-intercept at x equals negative 4. So your x-intercepts would be negative 4, 0, and 2, 0. All right, a question like this is preparing you to work for a little bit of fractions here. They ask if there's a maximum or a minimum and what the vertex is. You're not going to have a question specifically like this, but you guys should be able to work through this. What kind of a parabola is this, positive or negative? Is it going to have a maximum or a minimum? A minimum, okay? If you were going to find the vertex, which they ask you to, what is the vertex form? X equals negative b over 2a. What's my b term?
-2.
So I have negative 2 over 2 times 3. So 2 over 6 equals 1/3. The x part of my vertex is 1/3. How do you find the y? Okay, so just y equals 3 times 1/3 squared minus 2 times 1/3 plus 1. We have to distribute this 2 first. So 3 times 1 over 9, right? Minus 2 over 3 plus 1. Can I simplify here? 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So you have 1/3 minus 2/3 plus what? 3 over 3. Good. What's 1 minus 2? Negative 1 plus 3. Negative 1 plus 3. So y equals 2 over 3. So your vertex is at 1/3, comma 2/3. Now you can answer every one of those questions above if you had to. What's the axis of symmetry? X equals 1/3. What is the minimum value? Y equals 2 over 3. What's the y-intercept? 0, 1. Good. If you were to put this in vertex form, guys, this is your vertex. This is H and this is K, right? So f of x equals, what's the a term? 3. So you would just say 3 times x minus 1/3 squared plus 2/3. Just leave it as a fraction. Don't worry about it. But that's perfectly fine. Questions? Yep. All right, let's just talk about the end behavior of this one. We're not going to worry about graphing right now because when you put it in standard form and then solve it, some of the roots are imaginary. But if I put this into standard form, it's 2x cubed plus 3x, right? Odd, which we think of what? Opposite, and it's positive. So we're going to think of like a positive cubic function or a positive line. So what is the end behavior? What's going on the left-hand side?
Falling left.
It's falling left, good. And rising right, very good. You guys did a pretty good job on that on your quiz. Now, to find the zeros or the intercepts, you guys would factor, but this doesn't factor pretty, but it has imaginary roots. Take out the GCF plus 3x, so you'd have x and then 2x squared plus 3. And then when you solve 2x squared plus 3, it becomes imaginary. But let's look at this one. You're not going to have any imaginary roots. All right, what's going on here? Are we in standard form? Yeah. Yes. So let's talk about our end behaviors. We're going to go through this whole problem. End behaviors. Why is it rising left and rising right? Because it's an even function, so the arrows are going in the same direction, and they're both going positively. So it's rising left and rising right. All right, so we're going to talk about, we got to find the X intercepts. Then once we do that, we can talk about multiplicity and what it does at the x-axis. But you guys will have one of these where you have to graph and everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and rewrite my problem. It's x to the 4th, what, minus 6x cubed minus 2x squared plus 12x, okay, equals 0. How many answers should I get? 4. Good. So the 4th power, you should get 4 answers. So the first thing I do is factor out what? X. I'm going to take out an x. Every single term has an x. Factor out that x, and you're left with x cubed minus 6x squared minus 2x plus 12 equals 0. Everybody agree? Mm-hmm. All right, 4 terms left. What do we do? Good. So first 2 and your second 2. So I'm going to leave this x outside. What can I take out of x squared and x cubed? Take out that x squared, and you're left with x minus 6. What can I take out of negative 2x and a positive 12? Perfect. Good job, guys. Negative 2. So x minus 6 equals 0. So I have x minus 6 one time, and then what do I have? X squared minus 2. Now at this point, I would look and say, oh, x squared and a minus, is it the difference of perfect squares? No. So this is just going to be a yucky answer, but you can still solve it. If I set each equal to 0, x equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0, x squared minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 0, that's one of my solutions. X equals 6, that's another solution. X equals, what did we say? Plus or minus the square root of 2. Now guys, don't be fooled here. That is two answers. Is the square root of 2 and negative square root of 2 the same place on a graph?
No.
So is there multiplicity? There's no multiplicity. Good. I understand you got what plus or minus. That's fine. Positive square root of 2 and negative square root of 2 are two different places on the graph. So at each of these intercepts, what is your graph going to do? Go through or touch and turn? It's going to cross through. Very good, guys. There is 4. Yep. So if we draw our intercepts, right, I have one at 0. I have one at 6. And then positive, negative square root of 2. So we'll say maybe here-ish, maybe here-ish. All right, so our graph, what did you say that the ends of the graph were doing? They're both going up, right? So look. Now what happens, tell yourself this, what happens at the x-axis? Is your graph going through those points or bouncing? So I'm going to come down, watch, I'm just going to go through that one and then back up and then through that one and then back up. If it touches and turns, it's because you have a multiplicity an even number of times. Don't worry about that. All right, let's just talk about this one for a second. All right, don't worry about graphing it right now, but let's talk about what it looks like. And behaviors.
Down.
Both going down, right? Falling left and falling right. Why is it falling left and falling right? Negative, good. Falling right. Don't worry about it. For the sake of time.
Do we do it for homework though?
You can. I mean, if you guys were going to find the zeros, what would we do here? Negative 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. To find the x-intercepts, how do we do this? Negative 1 we're going to bring out. I'm left with 3x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. This is the kind of factoring that you guys are going to see. A times C, 3 times negative 1. What are the factors of negative 3 that multiply to give you negative 3, but add to give you a 2? Plus 3 and minus 1. Guys, your A term is not 1. What do I do with that 3? I'm going to put it underneath. So I have negative 1 times x plus 1. And then 3x minus 1 equals 0. You set each piece equal to 0. Negative 1 equals 0. Never true. X plus 1 equals 0. So I get x equals what? Negative 1. Good. And then I get 3x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals positive 1/3. How many zeros should I have had from the beginning? 2. How many do I have? 2. Is there multiplicity? No. What's going to happen at each one of those zeros? It's going to go through. Good. Long division. There is a question on the test that says you have to solve using long division. So let's go through it. All right. Chances of you getting a remainder are pretty high. So if you get one, don't freak out. So I have 8x cubed plus 18x squared plus 13x plus 5. Make sure there's no gaps, right? 3, 2, 1, none? Good. Okay, so first term into first term. Negative 4x times what gives me 8x cubed? Negative 2x squared. So I'm going to put that above my x squareds. I'm going to get my subtraction ready. And now I'm going to multiply. What's negative 2x squared times negative 4x? Positive 8x cubed. What's negative 2x squared times the negative 3? Plus 6x squared. Before I can subtract, what do I have to do? Distribute that negative. So plus, minus. What is 18x squared minus 6x squared? 12x squared. My 8x cubes cancel out, and I bring down my 13x. Now we start the process all over again. Negative 4x into 12x squared. Negative 3x. So get your subtraction ready. Multiply. Negative 3x times negative 4x is 12x squared. Negative 3x times negative 3 is plus 9x. And before I can subtract, what do? Distribute. What's negative 13 and a positive 9? 4x. My 12x's cancel out. 5 comes down. First term into first term. Negative 4x times what gives me positive 4x? Negative 1. Get your subtraction ready. So negative 1 times negative 4 gives me positive 4x. Negative 1 times negative 3 gives me positive 3. And before I can subtract, what do? Distribute. So I'm left with the whole number 2. Where does that 2 go? So it becomes 2 over negative 4x minus 3. It's going to be minus since it's negative. The 2 is positive, that's fine, but your denominator's negative. All right, let's go down here. How do you tell if something is a factor? Given a polynomial, given a binomial, how do you tell if something is a factor? Okay, the remainder is 0. So I'm going to say x plus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to use what in my synthetic division? Negative 2. So negative 2 goes up here. 1, negative 3, negative 7, 1, negative 1, 18. Make sure there's no gaps. And take your time doing this, guys. Real easy to make a little mistake here. Bring down your 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 3 and negative 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 and negative 2 is 10. Negative 7 and 10 is 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 1 and negative 6 is negative 5. Negative 5 and negative 2 is 10. Negative 1 and 10 is what? 9. 9 and negative 2 is negative 18. Positive 18 and negative 18 is? So what did you guys just show me?
It's the factor.
Yes, it's a factor. Now, they're not asking you this, but just for your own knowledge, how would I write what's left over? X to the 4th, good.
5x cubed.
Good, Julia, cubed. Keep going. Perfect, good. You start with 1 exponent down, good.
Do we have to factor it?
Not tomorrow.
Tomorrow we're going to have to do double synthetic division.
Maybe. Here we go. What?
All the synthetic division questions wrong.
If the question asks you like it did yesterday, all they're asking you here is this a factor? Yes or no? So the last question that I'm going to show you, number 15, if we get to it, it's going to say, use the rational root test to find all of the factors. They're not asking you for all of the factors. They're asking you, is x plus 2 a factor or not? Is x minus 6 a factor or not?
If it gave us that and then find the remaining factors.
You would do synthetic division again. Yep.
And then
All right, here we go. Let's do this one. I'm using 6. So the coefficient of x to the 4th is 1. What do I fill in with all the... So 0x cubed, 0x squared, 0x, then I have 1296. We're going to go through this one quickly, guys. 1 times 6 is 0 plus 6 is 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 0 plus 36 is 36. 36 and 6 is 216. 0 and 216 is 216. 216 and 6 is 1296. Are these factors, is x minus 6 a factor? No. If it was negative, then yes, your remainder would be 0, but this is not a negative. You would add those two numbers together and get a big number, so no, this is not a factor. This next question says use the remainder theorem. When they tell you to use the remainder theorem, what is the only thing they care about? The remainder. So they're telling you what to use to synthetically divide. So 4, -8, -4, 23. The only thing we care about is the remainder. 4 times -3, -12. -8, -12 is -20. -20 and -3 is 60. -4 and 60 is 56. What's 56 times -3? -168, thank you. And then what's 23 minus 168? -145. Somebody did their homework. Thank you, sir. So you would answer this question and say f of -3 equals -145. When I use -3 to synthetically divide, my remainder is -145. It's going to say solve the equation given that one of the roots is whatever. They're telling you what one of the x is equal. Make sure, guys, when you first get a question like this, that everything is on one side of the equation and it's set equal to 0. But how many answers should I get here? I should get 3. They gave me one of them already. X equals 1. I already know what one of my answers is. So now I'm going to synthetically divide using 1. So I have 12, -25, 16, and -3. Bring down your 12. What's 12 times 1? 12. And -25 and 12 is -13. -13 times 1 is -13. 16 minus 13 is 3. And 3 times 1 is 3. My answer is 0. If you don't get 0 when they tell you one of the roots is something, you did something wrong. All right, so now how do I rewrite my leftovers here? 12x squared minus 13x plus 3 equals 0. Now we need to factor. A is not 1, so A times C. 12 times 3 is 36. I need factors of 36 that multiply to give me 36, but add to give me -13. -4 and -9, good. My A term, guys, is not 1. So I have to put my 12 underneath both of these. Do either of these divide out pretty? No, but you can simplify. X minus 3/4, right? And x minus 1/3. Agreed? Now, you can solve from this point if you wanted to. Or you could rewrite your parentheses, 4x minus 3 and 3x minus 1 equals 0. But you could solve from the fraction part. Because if I have x minus 3/4 equals 0, what would I do with the -3/4? Move it to the other side. So you have x equals 3/4. And what's my other x? Positive 1/3. But if they tell you, they give you a question, they say, okay, find all the roots. Here's one of the answers. It will work, I promise you. You might have to factor where A is not 1, which is what you're going to have to do throughout your test. But you guys, we should be able to do that. All right, two more. What?
Do you have to include 1? X is equal to 1?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
All right, synthetic division to find all the roots, given that the polynomial has x equals -3. This is the same kind of thing. What do you notice, though, first? It's out of order, right? So x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12. And they want you to evaluate using what? All right, but one of my roots is what? -3. So let's do that. -3. I have 1, 3, -4, -12. If I did not reorder that and put it in standard form, would you get your answer right? So please be careful of that, guys. 1 times -3 is -3. 3 minus 3 is what? 0. Okay, so 0 times -3 is 0. -4 plus 0 is -4, and then -4 times -3 is 12. So that works out. Now, how do I write this?
X squared
X squared minus what? 4 equals 0. What does that work out to be?
X plus 2x minus 2.
X plus 2x minus 2. So your other two x's are x equals positive 2, x equals negative 2. Somebody said before, can I write plus or minus? Absolutely. So they gave us one of the roots. We found the other two. Understand? When you have a question like this, the first thing you want to do is try to factor it normally, our traditional way. Is there a GCF that I can take out of everything? No. Can I group first two, second two? No. This is where we have to do our P over Q, our rational root test. I look at the last number, which is what? 4. So I'm going to say plus minus 1, 2, and 4. You don't have to worry that it's negative because you're going to account for plus and minus at the beginning. And this is where we use our synthetic division. So I'm going to try 1. So I have 1, 2, negative 3, negative 8, and negative 4, right? So bring down my 1. 1 times 1 is, and 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 3 and 3 is 0. 0 times 1 is? Negative 8 and 0 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 1 is, is this going to be a root? Okay, so just stop. When you realize it's not going to work, go to the next one. So negative 1, 1, 2, negative 3, negative 8, negative 4. Bring down your 1. 1 times negative 1. And then 2 and negative 1 gives me 1, right? 1 times negative 1. Negative 3, negative 1. Negative 4, negative 1. Negative 8 and 4. Negative 4 times negative 1. Negative 4 and 4. 0. At this point, guys, what did you just show me? Negative 1 works. You have to write that down somewhere. Don't just leave it. Correct. Perfect. I don't care where you write it. Write x equals negative 1 and circle it.
And we're going to have 4 roots, right?
Correct, because it's x to the 4th power. But you should circle it. I will find it if it's on the paper that you're handing in, I promise. But now I know, like Julia just told us, wait, we have 3 more roots to find. Well, how do I write this, my remaining polynomial? X cubed plus x squared minus 4x minus 4 equals 0. Now the first thing we check here is, ooh, can this factor? If it doesn't, what do we have to do again? We got to do synthetic division again.
Wait.
If it doesn't factor, I'm saying if yours doesn't tomorrow, you have to do P over Q again. This one happens to factor. I can take out an x squared and I'm left with x plus 1, right? I can take out a negative 4 and I'm left with x plus 1. So it's x plus 1, I write it 1 time, and x squared minus 4 equals 0, right? So x plus 1, x minus 2, x plus 2 equals 0. You guys with me? Difference of perfect squares. So I have x equals negative 1, I have x equals 2, and I have x equals negative 2. Do I have all 4 of my roots now?
Yep.
If it makes you feel better, hold on 1 second. If it makes you feel better to write them all together, feel free. You got x equals negative 1 2 times. That's okay. You need to write out all 4 of your roots. But knowing what we know now, what do we know about x equals negative 1? You guys would tell me it has what? Multiplicity. If I asked you to graph this, which I'm not, what would it do at negative 1? What would it do at 2 and negative 2?
Go.
Perfect. You guys could tell me right now, what's the end behavior of this graph?
It's a parabola facing up.
Same way, rising left, rising right. Look, see, it all goes together.